So first of all, thank you so much for being here. So we've been on a little bit of a mission over the last, I want to say 16 to 18 months to help our customers understand, define, and share the ROI of their channel programs, their partner programs. It's important to do that because I think I've heard it referenced probably 4 or 5 times today that quite often in organizations, especially if the leadership team in your organization is not already channel aware or channel friendly, there tends to be a sense of, especially if you run a mixed model, where you have a direct sales component to your business and then you run a channel model along with it. There can be a sentiment that the revenue I really count on comes from the direct sales side. And then I look at the channel revenue as, I hope I can kind of close the gap of what I need for the quarter, for the year. But there's a sentiment of not treating that partnership revenue as a fully reliable source of revenue the same way they do direct sales, right? And as a result, it's difficult for channel chiefs and partner leaders to understand how do I get investment for positive NPV projects that involve the channel? How do I get an equal opportunity to show how that investment could benefit my organization? So given that kind of starting point, about 1.5 years ago, we started looking much more aggressively into how we could help establish what is the ROI baseline of an organization today with their channel program, and how do you track that progress over time so you become just as much of a full-fledged revenue partner, a revenue source in your organization as the direct sales team is. So we'll walk through this a little bit. So first of all, I'm not quite sure. You can't ask for better marketing people than Jane and Dave and John, and yet they still chose this picture. I have many social media pictures that are 25 years younger than this, and they could have chosen any of them. But no, they went with this one. Not the one where I was young and slender. No, this is the one they chose. I'm not sure why that happened. Okay, let's go through this. So we were also responding to the fact that we were hearing a consistent theme, right? And in Partner, we help companies that literally are starting their channel for the first time today, and they have 27 employees, and they're looking to establish a presence in an indirect model, and they're just starting out today. Then we help the biggest of the big, right? Honeywell, Xerox, we have some enterprise class clients that are, their expectations are enormous, and they have huge scale to their programs, and we try to help enable all of them, right? But one thing we hear consistently across all of these groups is that there is, over the last 18 months to 2 years, there's been this sentiment that we have to be able to tie our spend to the return we get on that spend. And if we can't tie to the ROI directly, then we question the validity of the spend. As a result, I think partner teams, channel teams across the industry have in general had to deal with trying to meet same or expanded expectations with a slightly adjusted resource set, right? Maybe before you had 5 people on your team and now you have 3. Maybe you had 20 people before and you got rid of 3 or 4 or 5. When Jay McBain was presented in Chicago at the, which conference was that? Catalyst. We were talking offline, and he said, Brad, in North America, as of that date, I think that was September 1st or something like that, in September, I think. As of that date, 120,000 channel account managers in North America had been downsized. 120,000. That's 120,000 people managing partner relationships, kind of having stewardship for opportunities, for nurturing that relationship, expanding the relationship with their partners, and 120,000 of them have been taken out of the workforce. That's a phenomenal shift, right? It means that all of us have to be able to do more with less, and there's more focus on what the ROI is of the spend we are getting. So we hear these comments all the time. There's a huge pressure on channel budgets. We hear the pressure of saying we have to tie more to revenue and not just influence or relationships. There's a lot of comments about being able to demonstrate the ROI of the channel spend. What is the return on that spend? And then there's I hear it in almost every executive call I go on with our customers' executives. They will ask me, Brad, what KPIs are people using in the industry in order to evaluate investment opportunity in the channel? And so we're going to talk more about that in just a minute. So just lots of requests. And so about a year, maybe 16 months ago, we came up with this ROI validated framework. And it's really meant to be one framework that you can apply that allows you to do a couple of things. One, it allows you to understand what the ROI is on your channel spend today. Now, I will tell you that we have a couple of really wonderful partners that we do a lot of business with. And one of them kind of told me a few months ago, Brad, you can't really calculate the ROI. There's too many things that you do with the channel that don't directly tie back to a revenue source. You go and do conferences like this, right, where you're doing brand evangelism and you're trying to promote what your software could do. You go and sponsor events and so on. And my answer to them and to all of us is, that's completely true. But it is also completely true for the direct sales and direct marketing side of the business as well. It doesn't keep them from generating an ROI on their sales and marketing spend, right? A direct marketing team, a direct side, has lots of spend that doesn't turn into a sales qualified lead and then an opportunity and then a closed won deal. But you have to figure that cost into the overall revenue you get from the operation, right? So, of course, both in direct sales and in channel sales, you're going to see some spend that you can't tie directly back to opportunities and revenue, but it has to be included in your ROI calculation. So we acknowledge that, but that shouldn't stop us from being disciplined as an industry in establishing the ROI of the programs that we run. Okay, so let's move forward a little bit. So this framework allows you to take your channel data, your channel process, and your execution services and calculate what the return is on that spend. So as we talk about ROI today, we're not talking about ROI on your PRM spend. I actually don't know of any companies that Impartner works with today that doesn't get a multiple ROI on their PRM spend. I don't know of any that are underwater on that spend. That spend's pretty modest compared to the overall program spend. When we talk about program spend, we're talking about people, tech stack, processes, all the marketing activities that go on, the campaigns that you run, and the tech stack that you run. So it's the entire set. Okay? All right. Am I going up or down? What was it? Going down. Going down. Okay. So this started when I was sitting in the office of one of our customers in Tel Aviv. And I was sitting there with the CFO that I didn't know very well, or at all, really. And we were waiting for the channel chief to come in for the meeting. And there's kind of this little awkward silence while we're waiting. And there's, didn't know what to say exactly. And we're waiting for the channel chief to show up. And so I said to the CFO, I said, hey, I'm curious, when your channel team comes to you with an initiative they would like to do that they believe will drive revenue for your organization, and they propose it to you, what's your rule of thumb? What do you look for in that to decide whether or not you want to make that investment and see if you can't leverage up and gain some revenue and growth, or you decide not to do it, right? What are you looking for in your metrics to decide what you're going to do? And I thought his answer was really interesting. He said, Brad, honestly, he said, I should be upfront with you. He said, I am completely convinced that the opportunity in front of us as an organization in the channel is transformational. If we could capture even a portion of what the channel opportunity is, it would be transformational for our business. They were a relatively small software security startup in Tel Aviv. He said, so I'm convinced that that's true. He said, number two, I am convinced that direct sales cannot get me there. There are too many markets, scenarios, or use cases where I need subject matter expertise that a partner has or a relationship that partner has to walk me into that opportunity and to make me relevant. And if I'm waiting for direct sales to do that, it's too expensive and it takes too long. So I'm also convinced as a CFO that I can't get there through direct sales and marketing. I have to have a presence to translate my value into the use case that they know so well. He said, but I'll be honest, I'll bet you I have turned down many positive NPV projects because my channel team couldn't give me a line of sight to the ROI. Because I'm pretty certain I've turned down things I should have said yes to. but I didn't know what to base it on. And so I kind of just paralyzed and said, well, better not to risk it. I might be losing some opportunity for gain, but I'm avoiding some guaranteed spend. Right? Now, that was a pretty interesting conversation with him. He said, if I could get a line of sight to the return my current program is getting me, and then start getting some trust and some KPIs I could look at, that if we could grow and improve those KPIs, I could invest more intelligently, I would do it. He goes, so if you could help us with that, we're game. Right? That was kind of the conversation. All right, so we're going to do a little, I think you guys have probably already read what's on the slide here a little bit, so, but I want to point out the fact that I think there is an expectation for us as industry members in the channel. I think we need to up our game when it comes to metrics. So we're going to do a little audience participation. There will not be any $200 gift cards, whoever answers this correctly, but you will get a gold star. It's a digital gold star, more emotional gold star, really. Okay, so here's a question for you. Let's pretend that you and I are all CROs of our companies. We manage our direct sales team, and we have a $1 million quota to close for the quarter. So we got to close $1 million at the end of the quarter. What is the industry accepted KPI for how much pipeline I need on day one of the quarter in order to close $1 million at the end? Double gold star for our brave people. Thank you. Absolutely. Everybody in the room knew it, by the way. They beat you to saying it, but everybody in this room was going, no, 3 to 4. If you have decent products, decent service, you're 3x to 4x pipeline multiple to what your quota is. Now, if you're struggling a little bit, your product has some bugs, you can't get traction, you might be at 5, 6x. If you're at 5, 6x, you're paying a lot of money for that revenue. You're spending a lot of money on the marketing side trying to generate the pipeline you need to close that revenue. But what you guys did, and tell me your name, sorry. Gaka, thank you so much, and Sam, thank you. So the industry accepted answer is 3. It's so important that you recognize how powerful that is, that the metric is industry accepted. If at Partner, our current pipeline to quota ratio is 4.5. I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying if it were. I'm sure it's much closer to 2, but let's say it were 4.5, right? If I walk into my CFO and I say, hey, I have an initiative that I want to go do, and I believe it will take us from 4.5x by using a proof of concept, where we could deploy a proof of concept in a matter of hours for a customer. I believe I can move that 4.5 metric down to 3.5. How long would it take the CFO to give me a yes or no? What? It'd be instant. He would say, what's the cost of doing that? And I'd say, $55,000. He'd say, done, go do it tomorrow. Because there's a metric tied to the revenue he's going to get from doing that, and he trusts it. It's industry accepted. The same thing is true for any other metrics up here. For example, in B2B SaaS, what's the average quota of the average direct sales rep? What's the average direct sales rep quota in B2B SaaS in North America today? What do you guys think? I know some of you know it. You're just being timid. Digital gold stars. I don't want to think there's not a reward, because there's virtual digital gold stars. But what do you think it is? What's the annual quota? 650? Okay. Yeah, that's a pretty good quota. You know, it's because the channel does so much at AvePoint. The direct sales don't have to do anything. I'll tell you. Any other numbers you want to throw out? 1.2. Actually, you guys bracketed it. I think the industry average is actually just a shade below $1 million. Okay? So the point is, though, that's a metric that is industry validated. If I walk into my CFO and I say, hey, we have some productivity gains that we want to do. We could invest in some technology, invest in some improved process, and we believe that productivity gain would move us from $750,000 per rep to $900,000 per rep in terms of quota. The CEO's response to investment will be immediate. They will say yes, they will say no, but you'll get it today. Right? Okay, so I want to just point out the fact that we could walk down, all of these metrics are on the left-hand side. These are the CRO metrics. And most CROs can have a conversation with their leadership team about those metrics without any preparation. They can tell you what their average quota is, what their ASP is, what the cost per lead, cost per opportunity, cost per close one deal. They have those hardwired into their brain, and they know how they change quarter over quarter and year over year. If you go to Curtis Brinkerhoff, who runs our sales team, and you ask him, what has his ASP been for the last 5 quarters? He can tell you in order. It was this, then this, then this, then this, and this. Okay, so you don't need to answer out loud. Probably best if we don't. But in the channel industry, and as channel leaders, can we speak to the metrics on the right with as much certainty? What is the average quota for a fully productive partner by segment? What's the average ASP of your deals to the channel, and how has that changed over the last 4 or 5 quarters? How many days to close a deal? What is your cost per lead of the channel, your cost per channel opportunity, and your cost per close one deal? Well, thank you, Dave. So what happens after you close a deal? If the channel is responsible for renewing those, what are your renewal rates, right? What's your churn rate in the channel? So many important metrics to be responsible for. Now, we don't really have the benefit. On the direct sales side, they have the benefit of these kind of publicly accepted terms. The 3X, the $1 million, those are very standard terms. There's probably an additional expectation placed upon all of you. Because there is no industry accepted term, it's really important that you demonstrate to your leadership team that you know what your specific company relevant metrics are. So if I were the channel chief of an organization and I had not received an annual quota, I would go to the CEO and say, I want one. I want a quota because I want to know how to say I can measure achieving that. And I want to go calculate all these metrics for myself so I could see how we've improved the business going over quarter, right? Okay, so let's do the next one. So in an effort to help our customers be able to do that, to baseline what the ROI is today, and then think about, well, what best practices as I apply them could improve that ROI performance as I go forward. We came up with the ROI validated program. It's 4 pillars and 12 steps. So I'm going to bounce through this. Now, as I put up these 4 pillars and 12 steps, I'd like to point out that some of you may be graduates of another 12-step program, and we're just so proud of you. You know what I'm saying? Just really, really proud of you guys for doing that. I would say as the next step, we want to do this 12-step program. So let me walk you through this real quick. I've been in partner, I think it's actually been, I joined in 2016, so what that is now, is that 8, 9 years? 9 years? Okay. I have never seen a high-performing partner program that doesn't try to address the objective of each of these 4 pillars. It will definitely look different if your program focuses on MSPs or resellers, or you're working more with referral partners, or you have a lot of OEM in your business, right? It will definitely look different. But addressing each of these 4 pillars seems to be a fundamental requirement for success across every channel program I've ever seen. So let me walk you through what those are. So pillar number 1 is all about establishing your channel revenue targets and have them being treated by the company as an equally relevant source of revenue as direct sales. So what you have in pillar number 1, you have to have a channel quota for the year that not only represents your program expectation, but you have to roll that down into your whatever segmentation is relevant for you. That might be partner types, it might be geographies, it might be industry verticals. There could be a number of ways of doing that, but the quota for your channel program should cascade down into the segmentation you use to drive your number. Okay. Number 2, it should actually get down and include the actual partner accounts, right? Like a business planning sort of function, where a fully productive partner has a revenue expectation attached to that relationship. Number 2, it's really, really important that you have a documented and agreed upon attainment policy. Maybe some of you have had this experience. Because if you want to see a really, really fun fight in an executive session, if a company is running a mixed model, direct sales and channel, and you ask the channel guy in that meeting, what number did you close last year? And they tell you the number, it's almost a guaranteed fight with the direct sales guy, right? The CRO immediately climbs up and says, hold on, no, that wasn't a channel deal, that was direct, and that wasn't, and they go back and forth, trying to take credit for the opportunities. That is a killer to channel productivity and channel ROI. So it's really important that you have an actual documented attainment policy so that you know how to, the channel team knows when they have been successful. There are lots and lots, especially when companies are smaller, they oftentimes have a channel program that finds opportunities or refers opportunities, but then they're worked along with the direct sales rep, right? That leads to a huge lack of clarity as to where the opportunity came from and where you want to invest to increase that opportunity. Do you want to go hire more direct sales reps, or do you want to bring in more source of the opportunity to the channel, right? So it's very important that you establish an attainment policy. It doesn't really matter what your policy is. Some of our customers, that attainment policy is actually not even dollars, it's points. They get so many points for a referral. They get so many points for a partner closed deal. They get so many points for a partner assist, where the direct sales team says, "Hey, I'm losing this deal, or I don't think I'm in the pole position to win it." You bring in a partner to help you, and then you close that deal 4 months later. Some of them do use point systems. That's okay too. But you have to have a way of saying, did we succeed or did we not? That way, the amount of money you spend on your channel could be compared to a revenue number that comes from the channel, and you can calculate an ROI. Okay, so that's pillar number one. Pillar number two is all about identifying your ideal partner profile by segment, then recruiting those partners into your program. It's also about sizing your ecosystem. I would say that half the customers we work with have too many partners in their program. They've been opportunistic in bringing in, just pulling in whoever will come. And then now they're saying, well, how are all these relevant? Are they all have the right characteristics of our ideal partner profile, but they're consuming your resources, your time. And you struggle to know if you're really making headway there. So having an ideal partner profile by partner segment, super important. Then you want to size, remember back in pillar number one, you set a target where you said MSPs need to drive this much revenue in 2025. Well, now you need to look at the average productivity of the fully trained and productive MSP partner and ask yourself, do I have the right number of MSPs to drive the number I just set in pillar number one? And do I have the right number in the right geographies or the right industry segments? Do I have too many in North America, not enough in Europe and Latin America? Or is it the other way around? So there's a sizing and a rationalizing of your program, and you go through. Then once you've identified what kinds of partners you want and what your gaps are, where you want to go recruit, then it's just a race. It's a race to recruit as many of those as you need, and then enable them to get them fully productive as fast as possible. So that involves your LMSs, your training programs, your automated partner journeys, where you walk them through a ramping process to become productive on your solution. Okay, so if you were doing this I know that this is a little bit like flying the plane while you're still building it, right? That's what all channel programs are, because no one does these things as 1, 2, 3, 4. You're doing all 4 things at once and trying to make sure that all of the work is coordinated, right? So it's kind of a jumbled mess sometimes you do that. So, but if you were doing it in order, I've set my targets and I know what partners I need and where. I've now recruited the right partner and I've made them fully productive. Pillar number 3 is now all about how I go to market with those partners. How do I create opportunity with them that grows their business and grows my business, and continuously ramp that relationship so it's more productive? And for those who do not fit the profile well or are not productive, you move them out of that program, replace them with those that could be. Right, so pillar 3 is all about the go-to-market motion. So step number 6, channel demand generation. There are a list of tools, applications, approaches that is as long as my arm. You got locators, marketplaces, MDF programs, our Google Ads program, you got TCMA, you have newsletters, you have, the list of things is just endless. And because this is a high pressure part of the value creation chain, there are a billion companies out there selling demand generation tools, right? And there's just so many that you could do, right? It's important to kind of rationalize that to what you want to accomplish with the channel. So one thing I'd point out is on point number 7, This is a matter of configuration. It's not theoretical. You can go configure this in your PRM today. It's really, really important, if you want to be able to calculate the ROI on your spend, that you associate the campaigns that drive your lead distribution and your deal registration. If you can associate the spend, the campaign is a proxy for the spend, right? So if I know what campaigns these came from, I now know the cost. If I know the cost and I know the deal registration value, I now have a return, right? And they're not here in the room today, but I'll tell you the company Smart Sheets. I don't know if any of you guys use Smart Sheets. We use them a ton. Smart Sheets, they're geniuses at this. They are so good. And it fits their model, it fits their stage of their kind of life cycle where they are. But today, if you were a partner to Smart Sheets and you were using their MDF program, every single deal registration that comes back in has a campaign associated to that deal registration. And if after taking their MDF money, if you don't register any deals that reference the MDF campaign as the source, they shut you off on MDF funding for the next quarter. It's awesome, right? So partners are highly motivated to say, hey, this came from the CIO dinner, from the golf tournament, from the whatever we did, because if they can source that, they get access to more MDF funds. Smart Sheets rewards them if there's more opportunity. So the partners are happy to go make sure their deal registrations are associated to the campaigns it came from. Now, certainly on lead distribution, when you go out and create leads for your partners and you distribute it out through your PRM, you can go ahead and attach that reference to campaign to that lead distribution. And when the partner says, convert this lead to an opportunity, the attribution is automatically carried through with it. Right? So there's a number of ways to tackle this, but I'd say it's critically important. Number 7 is a huge, if you want to demonstrate ROI, number 7 is a huge step. Okay, number 8, I got to tell you, I told Sam as we were getting lunch, I thought Sam's, his use case around case management is an awesome example of number 8. How do I enable the sales cycle for my partners so things go faster? I can decrease those days to close. I can improve my communication flow. Right? That case management thing seems like an answer from heaven as to how do I take these really high volume, highly productive, very demanding partners and automate something that takes a long time and is frustrating and speed it up. I'm sure Sam has accelerated the sales cycle with that partner and will accelerate the cycle with all the partners that use that tool because you're taking time out of the equation for them. We're making them more productive. Right? I love that. Okay. And then finally, step number 9, this is all about how do your partners quote your solution. Now, for some companies, if you're a startup and you're small, that just might mean that you have a well-crafted price list in your asset library that partners can get into, and it's segmented so that the right partner sees the right type of pricing, right? Maybe that's all you need to do to allow you to quote. For other companies, it's a full-blown CPQ quoting system that allows you to quote new opportunities, amend them, edit quotes, and do renewal quotes. And it's tied back into all of your price books in your CRM. Okay? But you should think about how do you help partners quote. If partners have to come to you for every quote, you are adding days and weeks to every sales cycle. You're really bogging that down with communication problems. Okay? All right. Okay, so that's pillar number 3. That's the kind of the go-to-market motion. Pillar number 4 over here is all about making sure that you have the right data to make decisions about and to demonstrate performance. I will point out one thing that's kind of I view this as something that is an underutilized aspect of having a PRM. Can someone tell me, when a partner registers a deal, they register a deal and they put in a deal registration value. In your organizations, how often does that value match the closed won number? Sam just shuddered. I don't know. Okay, so 90% of the time for AvePoint, the registered value does not match the closed won value. Think about all the data you could have access to if you planned your data management policy correctly. I have the deal registration value. I have at least one quoted value. And then I have a closed won, closed lost value. Wouldn't it be phenomenal to know that when you invested in this ideal partner profile, you fully enabled them and made them productive. You planned go-to-market activities with them to do joint business. Now you know the partners that bring deals in and grow the price, and those that are just discounting down to the bare bones to win deals on your solution. Wouldn't it be awesome to have all three of those data points around those partners? Would you be able to make better investments in those partner relationships if you had that kind of data available to you? Right? So I think we should be thinking about not just how do I perform. Pillar 4 is all about how do I show my reporting against the targets I set in pillar number 1. That's a huge, you got to have that, right? And it'll be the calculation of your ROI. But the richer your data set, the better decision making you're going to do. I would also add, I think, yeah, we are putting there, that most of the companies we work with are not very well prepared for AI and predictive analytics, right? In general, predictive analytics and AI favors scale and consistency. Everyone in the room, if your data management policy in the channel has scale and reliable consistency, raise your hand. Trevor, raise your hand. One company, only one company. The fact of the matter is, our channel data is just spewed throughout the organization for most companies, because the data is stored whatever was the path of least resistance when you deployed the application. So quoting data is somewhere, LMS data is somewhere else, rewards data is somewhere else, incentives is somewhere else, account and member data somewhere else perhaps, data about your channel marketing. What if you do channel marketing through Marketo? Right? What if you're using Shark Tank for leads? Well, now your data has been spewed all across the enterprise and nobody has the appetite to do data cleanup, right? Doing data cleanup is expensive and hard and time consuming. And as a result, as new products come out, so a partner PRM will be announcing AI and predictive analytics in 2025 on our platform, but those solutions will only be as helpful to you as your data set is clean, right? Predictive analytics and AI favor scale and consistency in data management. So I would strongly encourage everyone here, all of us, it's true for InPartner too, we got to clean up our data as well, it's not just everybody else. But you want to make sure your data, you're storing your data, you're tracking your data, you're consolidating your data in ways that are going to facilitate the use of game-changing technologies that come out. Okay, so these are the 4 pillars of the ROI validated program. So we kind of came up with this program, and then we thought, well, look, we should start doing like some workshops with customers to sit down with them and say, okay, if this is a pretty good framework to think about your channel program, and the goal is to define the ROI of your program today and then be able to track the progress of that ROI over time, then let's start having some workshops with our customers to sit down and say, where is it in your program today that you're already doing a phenomenal job in these pillars, and what's the low-hanging fruit? Where are the areas of best practice you could go apply that would help you improve that ROI in the coming quarters and years? So what we did is we kind of developed this. When we first did it, well, we've been evolving the process. Speaking of the plane that you fly and build at the same time, right? If you were a customer with us and you did an ROI workshop 8 months ago, it would look very different if you did it today. Today, we send out a survey 2 weeks in advance to collect the relevant data from our customers. We use that data so we don't show up at your doorstep and play 20 questions with you about your program, because we've already got a baseline set of data. Then we look at your configuration in PRM and see how much of the best practices have been configured. And you kind of come up with a chart that looks like this, right? It's designed to say, hey, in pillar number 2, you're actually doing a pretty good job. You got 2 out of 3 of them covered already, right? Maybe a little bit of low-hanging fruit down there on the enablement side, but it looks good. And in each of the pillars, you kind of get a review of where are we looking strong and where we maybe have opportunities to improve a little bit, right? Then, in that workshop, we have a conversation about how your program takes your channel process, all of your PRM configuration, and whatever execution services you use or need to make sure you get that kind of Venn diagram maximum benefit in the middle of all 3 of those, where you're going to maximize the ROI of your program. Okay, so these workshops have evolved quite a bit, but honestly, they're really fun too, by the way. If we haven't done one with you, we should do it. If you're not a customer today, we'd still love to do them with you. We'd love to do that. They're pretty fun workshops to do because of how much opportunity they uncover. And they tend to be really good at helping us clarify what are the next steps we should go do, right? What's the low-hanging fruit for us in improving ROI take? Okay, so 1, we answer the question of what is the ROI of my program today? 2, what channel strategies could impact improving that ROI starting right now? 3, that CFO in Israel was right. He said if we could capture just a portion of that opportunity, it would be transformational for our business. In order to capture that opportunity, you require at least some investment. So how do you share this ROI information with your leadership team to make sure you're unlocking the investment needed so you can attack that transformational opportunity in the channel? Finally, how do I execute all this in a resource-depleted world? The majority of us in this room have probably lost resources over the last 2 years because we maybe couldn't give that line of sight to ROI the way we want to. So how do we figure out how to operate efficiently to do more with less? And how do we find the way to succeed and earn back that right to go back and for that, ask the resources back? Okay, so after doing about a year of these workshops, we've started to get some data that looks pretty fun, right? And I'm not going to tell you that this data is final because it won't ever be final. As we do more workshops, we just kind of add more data to the data set. So if you and I are sitting in a conference somewhere 6 months from now and I put these slides up again, you may see a different adjustment, right? Because we're learning as we go. We're not trying to say that this is the end all be all, but it's been really interesting to see what data has come out of the workshops we've done to date. So I thought I'd share some of that with you, and we can kind of talk about some of the examples. And I will tell you, we have customers, and you guys heard from Sam today, you heard from Penny today. We have customers who are experts in their field, in their domain, right? And it is just a privilege, honestly, to watch how they take the technology they have and bend it to create value. It's awesome. So I'll mention a few of those examples as we go through each of these 4 pillars. But it really is a privilege to watch our customers. I mentioned Smartsheets earlier. I'm just amazed by their operational control of their business. They are so on top of their channel process, their channel data, and how they bring that into the account relationships with their partners. They're so good at it, right? It's really just, it's honestly inspirational to watch it. Okay, so let's go through some of the things we've learned. Okay, so in order to do some analysis on this, we had to find a way of comparing the data to find a baseline to compare it to. So group number 1, you guys are familiar with cohorts? You guys know what cohorts are? We're all good at that term? Okay, so we created cohort number 1. Cohort number 1 are the companies that have bought a PRM, but they haven't really what we call optimized any of the 4 pillars yet. So let me define what optimization means. We kind of made this up. So it's up for debate if we should change the definition. But we said, okay, in every one of those pillars I mentioned, let me put it back up for you real quick. So in each of these 4 pillars, there are multiple elements of that pillar that you could deploy as a best practice, right? So we said, okay, we're going to use, as our baseline for our cohorts, we're going to say that, well, there's cohort number 1, which are companies that have bought a PRM, they have a channel program, but they have not yet optimized at least 2 of the elements in that pillar. So they're at 0 or 1, kind of on the best practice deployment. These are accounts where they've kind of, if you build it, they will come sort of hope strategy, that I'm going to stand up a PRM and I hope that will help me. It does help, but they haven't really got it after the best practices yet. Okay, then pillar number 2, sorry, I'll bounce back to where it was. Cohort number 2 are those that have bought a PRM, have a channel program, and have executed at least 2 of the elements of a given pillar. So we compared the ROI for companies that, let's say in pillar number 2, if you optimize pillar number 2, we compare that ROI to companies that don't optimize pillar number 2. And then we have a separate number for mid-market, SMB, and enterprise. Okay, so we'll show you what the data started to look like. Now I will say, oh yeah, here we go. So if you're part of the hope strategy, and if I build it, they will come, I deploy a PRM, I have a channel program, but I haven't gone to the effort yet of optimizing any of the pillars. For enterprise, there's a little bit of return. You're making 10 cents on the dollar of your overall channel spend. That's not PRM spend. That's people, technology, everything. And if I'm a startup or mid-market, I'm not making money on it yet. Now, I got to tell you, it's not like the worst thing in the world. If you're a smaller company or just starting your program, I think most leadership teams understand that you plant your crop, you fertilize it, you weed it, you nurture it. It has a season to grow, and in the fall you harvest, right? I don't think they have a concern with that as long as they feel like that's where they're trending. You don't want to stay too long on that negative ROI, or else you'll just pull the plug on the whole thing entirely. But it's okay to be there for a year or two while you ramp your program. You just can't afford to be there too long. Okay, so let's talk. So this is pillar number one. It's not very promising, which I think, frankly, I probably could have asked anyone in this room to predict this, and you would have predicted it, which is buying technology by itself does not change whether or not you create value as an organization. Shocking. I know, but it's really about how you use that technology to implement best practice and create value add for your partners and for you. So it's really all the value added things you do with it. It's not just buying it and deploying it, right? It's one of the things where I think a lot of startup companies, their board will tell them, you need a channel program, go get a channel program going. So they buy a PRM and they start something up, but they don't know exactly what to do after that. And in those organizations, I think they tend to struggle to maintain that spend or that continuity. Okay, now, we are going to have a little bit of an audience participation question, though, so more digital virtual gold stars available, so which is cool. All right, I just told you that there are 4 pillars, and that we reviewed this data. We said, okay, for pillar number 1, companies that have enabled it and optimized it, what's their ROI compared to those that don't? Pillar number 2, those that do and don't. All right. Well, that means that one of these 4 pillars creates the most ROI. There is a top and a bottom. So maybe we'll just do just a show of hands. So you guys can look again at pillars 1, 2, 3, and 4. Hopefully you remember kind of what they were all about. How many of you think that pillar number 1 represents the highest ROI? All right, Penny. All right, we got some brave souls. All right, pillar 1. Pillar number 2. All about recruiting, ideal partner profile, enablement. How many think pillar number 2 creates the highest ROI as a function? Okay, all right, it's a rough crowd on pillar number 2. Pillar number 3, how many think the go-to-market? Okay, all right, that's the biggest vote getter so far. I'm worried we're going to wind up some people not voting, of course, which means you owe me a gold star. But okay, pillar number 4. Who thinks pillar number 4 is actually the highest ROI? We got a couple folks. All right, okay. So all good answers, but not all correct. The winning pillar is actually pillar number 1. So here's the way to read this slide. On the left, you have the ROI for those that don't optimize, right? In the middle, you have the ROI that's associated to pillar number 1. So if I'm an enterprise account and I optimize pillar number 1, I'm getting about $4.83 back on every dollar I spend. If I'm SMB, I'm making $2.35 every dollar I spend. Okay, so that's how to read that chart. Now, on the far right, this will be a spoiler for the future, but if there are companies that actually optimize all 4 pillars, they see a leverage up and they get a little higher ROI if they do pillar 1 and all the other 3. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. So in our case, we used employee size. We had it about 500 employees above and below. Well, actually, it's not true. 500 employees was the SMB. I think it goes up to almost like 1,000 for mid-market. So that's kind of the range. And then 1,000 above, I believe, in the analysis was enterprise. Okay. So, and we thought about doing it by overall spend, right? Like, what does your channel spend? But then it became tricky just because spend can change so much, whereas employee size had a more consistent metric over time. So we went with employee count, but there's probably some debate about whether that was the right metric, but it's probably good enough. Okay, so but could someone tell me why would this be true, though? It goes a little bit against the grain to say, I have a back office exercise. Pillar number 1 is back office. I'm going to set targets for my program. I'm going to set quotas for each of the segments of my program by my segmentation. I'm going to carry that quota all the way down to a fully productive partner account. I'm going to have an attainment policy that's documented. And that drives the highest value. Why do you think that's true? First of all, we may find with further research next year that this thing maybe drops and something else comes up, right? There's a certain data availability issue, but why would this be scoring so high? What do you guys think? Okay, I like that.
Say that's great, but we probably need to.
Oh, I love it. I love that, right? Having that objective sets targets, and it gives you a way of knowing when you've succeeded. I love that. What else? Yeah. Yep. So I love that comment, right? Although we're not paying you any more than we're already paying you for your comments. That was a bonus when you threw in. Okay, all right, so I got, really? Okay. All right, I got 10 minutes left, so I'll speed up. But I want to make sure everyone heard what Sam just said. I worked at EMC for 16 years before Dell bought us and we froze up. So for the first 7 or 8 years, we were terrible in the channel. We stole every deal we could from partners. Nobody had a better product than we did in the industry, and we were terrible. Honestly, we were just not good people. It wasn't just bad, it was just bad people. Anyway, not really, but we were pretty harsh to the channel. Once we made a few acquisitions, we realized we couldn't get to the markets we needed. We had a quick call to repentance. And we did what Sam just talked about. One of the things that comes from a documented attainment policy is a rational compensation plan that creates alignment. It always follows an attainment policy, because you can't expect the attainment if you don't compensate people to the outcomes you want. So one of the items that I think is actually, it's at the bottom of the slide, I actually think all of these things in Pillar 1 are actually a proxy for something more important, which is organizational commitment. If your leadership team will actually document an attainment policy, it means they are committed to this revenue stream. If you have quotas that are actually documented, published, and shared, it means they're committed to this part of the business. So as you walk away today from this presentation, oh, sorry, let me go back to this. I would say constantly seeking for greater organizational alignment and organizational commitment will do more than anything else to drive your channel number forward. So a couple of things real quick. I know I'm almost out of time. I'm only on the Pillar 1, so I'm going to speed up. Only about 20% of the accounts we do workshops with actually have optimized Pillar number 1. People say they do it, but they don't really do it. They say, I have a quota. And you say, what is it? They say, well, it's this. How do you measure it? Well, you know, I just send out an email saying we did a deal. And I said, does the company agree with you? Sometimes, right? It's just not, it's not an attainment policy. Right? Okay, so let's keep going. And we'll send these afterwards so you can read more on these individual notes. I will tell you though, just in the spirit of showing a couple of customer experiences, we have one customer that uses our opportunity sharing capabilities in the portal to then assign out points based on the different kinds of deals they do, referral, MSP, you know, they have different categories. And that, the way they segment that in the opportunity sharing feeds back into the attainment policy. So they actually have built-in reports that tell them how they're doing on every part of their segment. It's really creative, and it's really well done in the way they allocate this to go back to their attainment policy they've set. Okay, pillar number 2. So pillar number 2 is all about enablement. Remember, that's the recruiting the right type of partners, recruiting the right number of them, and then enabling them as fast as you can. You're kind of on that hamster, you know, wheel, running as fast as you can go to enable these partners as fast as you can do it. In this space, it's about $3 of return for every dollar you spend if you're enterprise, and you're making about 50 cents of the dollar. I think this one and the third pillar are kind of expensive, right? You think about what you do in pillars 2 and 3, it tends to be tech heavy. LMS expense, you know, so you tend to spend quite a bit here. So I think the return might be a little bit lower for that reason, but you're still getting great money back on whatever you spend in pillar number 2. Okay, so pillar number 2, let me just call out a couple of things that we have found so far. Number one, certainly more enterprise accounts do it than SMB, but it's by far the most optimized, right? 61% of SMB and 85% of enterprise, by far the highest attainment rates of any pillar. So I think everyone buys into the idea that I can't make a partner productive if I don't train and enable, right? So it's a pretty accepted requirement. Okay, some action items that I would just toss out. Most of the companies that we talk to in these workshops that say they have an ideal partner profile documented, they don't really have it documented. If you ask to see it, they'll say, well, I'm sure I can find it somewhere. What it usually comes down to is they'll tell you the characteristics of their current top 10 partners. That's what they're telling you. It won't necessarily be the ideal partner profile they need. It'll just be describing who does the most with them today. So I think it's worth it to put a little bit of rigor behind that. I'll also say we typically see if you don't have a really strong definition of your ideal partner profile, you tend to have bloated partner programs with a lot of drag. There's a lot of donut eaters in your programs that maybe at some point did make sense or you were hoping it would make sense, but they don't belong there today, either because you've grown or because they've atrophied or something or both. Okay. Also, if you don't have a good solid ideal partner profile, not only in your heads, but in your configuration, you tend to not be very good at recognizing the diamond partners in the rough that are in your long tail. There are a lot of partners in your long tail that could do a lot of business with you, but if you can't recognize them based on some reportable attributes or characteristics, then you probably aren't going to be able to identify them and promote them and invest in them. Okay. All right. And then we also see that it's really common for those of you who use in Partners PRM, we have a thing called Journey Builder. And that's evolved a lot over the last couple of years. It's gotten a lot more robust. But we find that it's really typical just to have like one journey, right? As opposed to a journey for each partner type or for each area of expertise. We have one customer that's really cool what they do. They have one or two journeys to enable new partners that join to get them to what they call fully productive. And then I think they have 6 or 7 journeys that partners can self-subscribe to. So if they want to do their competitive track or they want to do the IT track, so they can choose to go upgrade their knowledge set and capabilities in your solution by choosing these journeys. It's really cool and they get a lot of uptake on those journeys. So most people just do 1 or 2 to enable partners, but giving partners a way to self-subscribe to consume more of your content and knowledge on your solution is a hugely value-added way to move them down that enablement chain. Okay, real quick, Dave, how many more minutes have I got? 5, okay, good, all right. Pillar number 3. So it's interesting to me that the return on investment is pretty similar, SMB to enterprise. It's about $2. You're getting a 2 for 1. And we got to do a little more research in this one, honestly. I think this is because there's quite a bit of spend that's experimental in this space. We do a lot of, especially in tech, people do a lot of experimenting with demand gen, right? They want to try new things. They want to try to find what can deliver them a result. There tends to be a little bit of a churn of the solutions they use, and probably it's a higher expense there. But let me just walk you through this. So in Pillar 3, only about 20% of the SMB accounts, I think, have enough money or resources to do it. So they tend to underspend or underdevelop their go-to-market with their partners. Those that can afford it are getting a pretty good return on that money, but most of them feel too tapped out, I think, resource or money-wise to do it. Nearly 60% of enterprise optimizes pillar number 3. Locator, TCMA, adds to the channel, MDF, lots of those kinds of activities going on. I guess I would just call out as maybe an action item for everyone to think about as you go home today. If you go back home and you look at the configuration of your PRM or the way you track opportunities with your partners, if you don't have those opportunities, those leads associated to campaigns, I think you will regret it. So I would make that change as soon as you can to incorporate that so you can attach the revenue to the spend. Okay, on to pillar number 4. Pillar number 4 is basically identical to pillar number 1 because it's measuring the same thing. Pillar number 1 is the setting of the targets. Pillar number 4 is the measuring of the targets. You can't do one without the other, so they're pretty similar. If you answered 4, we'll give you a partial gold star. It's a silver star. You get a silver star, Peter. That's what you get. All right. So let me just walk through this a little bit here. So The optimization rates are pretty similar to pillar number one because if you didn't plan for it, you didn't measure it anyway. I will say the second bullet point was interesting though. About half of those that we do workshops with can't articulate the KPIs they're trying to drive to demonstrate the return on their spend. So we had someone in the group in Boston that I thought, they're not a partner customer today, but we hope they will be soon. They were talking about how they have a huge focus on cost per lead. And they look at cost per lead across their direct sales side and their channel side. And they were really excited when their channel cost per lead dropped about 30% lower than their direct sales cost per lead. They were pretty pumped about that, and they should be. That's a great metric to go get investment to make sure you can capitalize on the transformational opportunity in front of you. Right? Yep. Yep. So I think most of the customers we talk to, we say, tell me the KPIs you're looking to drive that you report back to your leadership team as the evidence of the return on the investment. And most of them would kind of look around the room and talk about some generalities of goals, but they couldn't speak to the metric. Well, they couldn't tell you how did they do in that metric last year and how are they doing so far this year. Right? So it's super important to think about what metrics are we going to drive through our channel spend that are going to change the outcome and the revenue opportunities we have to then demonstrate that ROI growth. Okay. If I were going home today, I would do two things. One, I would do pillar, even if you don't have the money or the resources to do pillars 2 and 3, I would go home and do pillar number 1 and pillar number 4. That will allow you to baseline what your ROI is today. And then as you improve that, you will get funding. CFOs want to give away money. I know it seems like they don't, but they actually want to spend it. They want to put it to good use. If a CFO could take $1 and turn it into 5, he's a genius. You're going to make your CFO a genius by helping him do that. So they want to give you money if you can demonstrate where it's going to go. The second thing is a channel data governance effort. If you aren't already doing that today, I would strongly encourage that you start it. Having the data you need to support predictive analytics and AI in the coming years will be critical. So I'd say get started on that right now to make sure you're prepared for that. Okay, I guess the last thing I'll say, just next last slide, I guess, is we've also seen in these workshops an incredible uptick in requests for partner management as a service. I used to have 10 people on my team. Now I have 7, but my quotas have not gone down. I need help managing my long tail. We just closed a deal today where a company came to us and said, I have an MDF program. I used to have people who had run the MDF program for me, but I lost that headcount. I need someone to look at the applications and make sure they check these boxes for me. And then look at the claims and make sure the claim matches the application. And then give it to me as a fully approved approval for the company to go approve. So we're now doing MDF auditing for several companies because they just don't have the resources to do it, but they want the return that MDF brings and they can't let it go unmanaged, right? So you can see at each one of the 4 pillars, whether it's around business planning and goal setting, your ecosystem planning, your enablement and your onboarding, your go-to-market activities, every one of these, there's a component of, I used to have resources to help me with that, I don't anymore. And if I could leverage an offshore model or a low-cost model to get some tasks done, I get a huge return or I maintain a revenue stream, but at a fraction of the cost it used to cost me. We're going to see a lot more of this over the coming years as a requirement. Okay, and then, okay, so we've covered these 5. So I'm basically out of time, but are there any questions I could answer about the analysis we've done so far? Any thoughts, questions, concerns about it? Happy to take any for a minute if we can. All right, well, I'll be around. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.